Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's September 16th, 2025. I've done a video about this before, and I just wanted to do a better one. The information that I provided in the first video was good. The production quality was not. It was terrible. So I wanted to redo that video with the same good information, hopefully even better information, but definitely better production quality. So here we go. That's what this is about. So here lately, I've been seeing a ton of misinformation about people saying that renewable energy produced with renewable sources, is cheaper than energy produced with traditional sources, typically fossil fuel sources. The people that sell solar panels, people that sell wind turbines, the politicians who support them, people in the media, your neighbor, all kinds of places you might have heard this from, they all certainly say this. Now, just right up front, straight up against fossil fuel generation, renewable energy definitely has lower variable cost. The sun and wind are free. How many times do we hear that, right? So variable cost, yeah, that generation standing on its own 2 feet has lower variable cost, no doubt. But look at your utility bill. What's happened with your utility bill as we've implemented more renewables? Our electric bills have kept increasing. Well, mine has. I assume everybody else's has. If you believe the data that's out there, everyone else's has. Now, I know there's been inflation, of course, but the promise of renewables has been that it's going to lower our electricity bills. That's not happened. So I'm going to flip over to a spreadsheet here, turn off me. Just pulled a couple of graphs in here. The graph over at the left shows, as it says, the electricity production by source in the United States from 2013 through 2024. The very bottom is coal generation. So you see the portion of electricity generated in the United States by coal is decreasing over time. That's not a surprise. Here where I'm at locally, we retired our coal-fired power plant in 2020. This is happening all over the nation. Natural gas is increasing somewhat, oil, nuclear staying about the same, hydropower, hardly any changes there. But a big change up at the top, and what's taking up a lot of the slack from coal generation going away are various types of renewables: wind, solar, bioenergy, and then other. Wind and solar being the two biggest of those components. And so that's definitely going on from 2013 in the last 12 years or so until now. Now, if you go over to the graph on the right, go back to the graph on the left. As you see, it came, I always try to cite my sources. This graph on the left came from Our World and Data. You see the website information at the bottom. The graph on the right came from the Energy Information Agency, EIA.gov. That's a agency of the federal government that provides all kinds of information about the sources and uses of electricity. So this came out of their 2024 Electric Power Annual. It's a report they put out every year. And so you see the cents per kilowatt hour for residential customers. I did not include commercial, industrial, other uses, but the trend is the same. The numbers are different. So from 2013 through 2023, the last electric rate information the EIA put out was 2023. You see this has gone from a little bit more than 12 cents to 16 cents. So that's a huge increase. So again, there has been inflation, but this is more than inflation. So there's something else going on. Now, it's been a couple years since I was in the industry. I can't tie it 100% down to the implementation of renewables, but I can say for sure that the amount of the portion of energy generated by renewables is increasing. We see that in the graph on the left, and I can also say for sure that the average residential energy cost or electric rate is going up too. And so we do see those two things happening simultaneously. So let me turn my camera back on. So let's see here. So I want to explain a little bit in hopefully understandable terms why the integration of more renewables to the grid not only might, but it must. It must. There is no way that more renewables being implemented on the electric grid cannot result in a higher electric bill to consumers. Before I do that, I just want to offer a couple of caveats, a couple of important points. I personally have nothing against renewable energy. If it makes my electric bill lower, I'm all for it. Now, with that said, I'm sitting here on my family's farm. I built a house on my family's farm. I can see our farmland from here. There's only so much farmland in the world. The number of people are increasing. I really hate to see good farmland covered up with windmills with solar panels. There has to be a better way to locate renewables, but that's again, that's a issue I have with it. But I'm not against it. If it does make my electric bill lower, I'm for it, as long as it doesn't spoil all of our farmland, because we need to eat as much as we need, probably more than we need energy. And then everything I'm going to describe here, if large utility scale energy storage ever becomes economically viable, it changes everything we're talking about here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. It exists now. There's large-scale batteries, there's large-scale pump storage where there's water pumped up a hill during periods of low demand, and it's pumped back down the hill in periods of high demand. Those things on a relatively small scale are viable. On a large scale, large enough to make a difference in the price of electricity, they are not viable. So whoever figures that out is going to be a billionaire, rightfully so, because it's going to be a game changer. It's really going to help with the implementation of the integration of renewables into our electric grid. So before I get going on this, maybe I should have done this first. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jason Potts, if you don't know me. I spent a couple of decades working in finance and accounting for a utility here not too far from where I live. In that utility, the whole time I was there, it was basically a challenging time. Involved a lot of hard decisions. So most of my time was spent analyzing and modeling the cost of electric generation from different sources. I won't say I got good at it, but I definitely got a lot of good practice at it. When I started, and we started doing this, they came to me and said, okay, here's what we need to do, here's the decisions we're facing, and we need to put together a model to analyze this decision. I actually thought that was easy. So at the very beginning, I made the exact same mistake that a lot of people make, and I see this same mistake repeated in the media, comments on social media, whatever it is. A lot of people make this mistake, assuming again that it's easy. And the way that I assumed that it was easy, and a lot of the people that I see commenting on this stuff assume that it's easy, is that they make the mistake of saying, hey, the source with the lowest cost per unit of electricity, that's per kilowatt hour or per megawatt hour, kilowatt hour being 1,000 watt hours, megawatt hours being 1,000 kilowatt hours. People saying that a source of generation with the lowest cost per kilowatt hour or megawatt hour has to be the best, right? Well, to be just completely blunt, that approach is just very, very wrong. And it's not just wrong, it's the reason that our electric bills are going up as renewables are being implemented into the electric grid. It's just wrong, and it's not the right way to do it. So what is the right way to do it? The right way to do it is to analyze the cost of generation mix to your entire system. Doing otherwise is very short-sighted and just completely ignoring the actual reality of the math behind how it works. So I mentioned that you need to analyze the cost of your generation mix to your entire system. What do I mean when I say a system? Let me define that. And a lot of this stuff, I use colloquial definitions of a lot of utility terms simply because not everybody is involved in the nuts and bolts of utility. So if you go ask an electric utility engineer what's an electric system, they're going to give you a two-page answer. My answer for purposes of this video is that a system, let me look at my definition. It's the entirety of your electricity supply and usage, your electricity supply and demand. And so if you have an off-grid house, your house is out in the middle of the woods somewhere, doesn't have a wire running to it from your local utility, you are your own system. Everything that you produce is going only to your house, and the only place that the house is getting electricity is from whatever you produce. So all of your demand, all of your supply is in that system, your house, is yours. If you have a small utility that is completely separate from the grid, whatever is produced in that utility, by that utility, used by that utility's customers, that's its system. A system can also be an entire regional transmission organization that covers several states. There are several of those in the United States. So what I'll describe and the cost that I'll describe applies to a system of any size. Now, one thing that I found in my career, and that's in what I do now after I've retired from that utility, and I certainly found it while I was working at that utility, is the importance of communication. It doesn't matter how good you describe, or I'm sorry, how good you understand something yourself. If you cannot explain that to somebody else, then that knowledge is, it's helpful for you to know it, but it's not helpful at all to the people that you work with, that you work for, the people that make decisions using the work that you do. And so I've really strived over the years to improve my ability to communicate these concepts to people. And when you try to explain utility finance to people that don't work in utility finance every day, their eyes start to glaze over. There's a lot of very specialized terms, a lot of very specialized calculations that happen in a utility. Utility accounting is different than a lot of other industries' accounting. So even if you explain utility accounting to like an accountant that works in a bank or an accountant that works in a CPA firm, there's a lot of it that's Greek to them. So one thing that I started doing early on in my career at the utility is I started using the analogy of a car. Everybody typically understands that. Most people, most adults own a car. They're familiar with the idea of filling up the gas tank, paying insurance, registration, tax, everything on it, paying the loan if they have a loan on it, replacing that car at the end of its life. So it's a pretty decent analogy. It's not perfect, but there's one thing about it that makes it a very good analogy to the electricity industry, and that is that in both examples, you can't store the output of either one. So what's the output we get out of a car? Why do we have a car? We want to drive miles. Well, if you need to drive 20 miles tomorrow, you can't drive 20 miles today and then be done, right? You can't store those miles. So, I mean, wouldn't that be nice if you wanted to go on a long trip a month from now, you just drive a few miles every day this month, store them up, and then you don't have to drive that day. That sounds silly. Well, somebody that is familiar with the utility industry, electric utility industry, it also sounds silly to them, the idea of storing electricity, again, unless large-scale storage ever comes online. But as it is right now, electricity has to be produced at the moment that it is consumed. You can't produce a bunch of electricity today, stick it in a warehouse, and then use it tomorrow. And so it's different from producing corn or socks or computers or cell phones, bricks, any product that you can actually produce a whole bunch of today, stick in a warehouse, and then use it tomorrow, next week, whatever. You can't do that with electricity. So that's one thing that makes this analogy of a car very good to compare to the production of electricity, because you can't drive miles today and use those miles tomorrow. And so you have to consume them as you produce them. And so let me go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to turn my camera off again. Let's go back to the spreadsheet and go over to a different sheet. Okay, so what I've done here to help us understand the cost of operating different sources of generation is I have put together a spreadsheet on owning and operating a car for a year. So in my first example, and let's concentrate on column E here, we have car one. So you've got a car right now. Your system, your transportation system, consists of one car. So you drive that car 12,000 miles a year. You have variable cost. Now we'll get into some accounting nerd stuff here, but variable cost, they vary directly with the amount of production, in this case number of miles, that you have out of this asset. And so if you drove this car 0 miles, let's try that. Yeah, your variable cost goes to 0. Going down, skipping ahead a little bit, fixed cost, those do not vary with the number of miles that you drive. And so you see that if I put the miles to 0, variable cost goes to 0, fixed costs do not change at all. And so variable cost, obviously you have fuel. You can see my assumptions in column C. I'm not going to go through them. You can look at them if you want. But the more miles you drive, the more fuel, oil changes, tires, and then variable maintenance, repairs and maintenance. Those go up with the number of miles you drive. They go down with the number of miles as the number of miles decrease. Fixed cost, again, they don't change with the number of miles that you drive. So you bought, and I'm assuming a $30,000 car. I know that you can spend way more than that for a car. I have 2 vehicles myself. You add up what I paid for them put together, they come out to about $30,000. So I bought 2 vehicles for $30,000. I'm assuming that you'll buy one for $30,000. That you get 15 years out of that. So you divide 30,000 divided by 15, and that's $2,000 of depreciation per year. And again, that's going to happen whether you drive it a little bit less or a little bit more. And so obviously if you don't put any miles on it, then this is not a completely fixed cost, but we're going to assume that you drive enough miles to depreciate it and make it last about 15 years. Now, I personally don't do debt, consumer debt. I encourage my clients now who are not utilities, they're all just people, not to do debt. I've seen too much trouble with debt, but that's probably another presentation. A utility, on the other hand, there's a very valid reason that a utility does debt, a lot of debt. So we'll assume that you have a loan on your car just to get the interest component in there. So over a 5-year loan, you're going to average about $1,100, $1,128 each of those 5 years. And again, just some blanket assumptions: about $1,000 of insurance, $300 of license and registration on that car, about $500 of repairs and maintenance that you're going to do on that car, whether you drive it or not. So you know, a car and a power plant's no different. Sitting, not producing, not being used is actually hard on it too. So there's maintenance that has to be done, irregardless of the number of miles that you drive. And then storage. I like to keep my trucks in a garage. So if it takes a garage, $5,000 worth of land to build that garage, I'm going to spread that out over 25 years because that garage is going to last hopefully longer than the car does. So that's another $200 of fixed cost. Just to try to recognize the cost that you put $5,000 of land into storing your car. You add all those fixed costs up, comes up to about $5,100. So you add the variable and fixed cost, $2,900, $5,100, variable plus fixed, you get about $8,000. And again, 12,000 miles. You divide the dollars divided by the number of miles, and you get about almost 67 cents per mile. So that is the cost of your system per unit of production. And so you remember that number. So let me unhide some columns that are currently hidden. Now don't look ahead to the answer. That's cheating. So, all right. Let me hide that back because I want to talk a little bit about it first. So, you know, you're going along great. You've got this one car. You're getting by with about 67 cents per mile. Actually, it's not you bought a reasonable car. It gets halfway decent gas mileage. You're not spending a lot of money on maintenance every year. So you're pretty happy with that. But somebody comes along and they say, hey, I can sell you this other car that doesn't use any fuel, doesn't need to do oil changes, it's cheap. It's way cheaper than what you're doing now. And of course, you know, you want to jump on that, right? Because it doesn't use gas, doesn't do oil changes, has hardly any cost according to the salesman. And so you jump in, you buy the second car. So now let me unhide those columns. All right, so let's go. So now we've got the columns that we just looked at. this car 1, we just went through those columns. Now what we've done is we've added these 5 columns, and we've also modified some of our assumptions. And so we've still got, well, I'll mention that here in a second. So car 2, you bought car number 2 that does all these magic things that the salesperson told you about. You still want to drive 12,000 miles a year. So what you find is that this car can only be driven when it's really sunny outside. If it's cloudy, you can only get about 40% of the usual miles out of it. If it's at the middle of the night, you can't get any miles out of it. Or you can substitute in, if the wind is not blowing, you can't drive this car. If the river is not high enough and flowing fast enough, you can't drive this car. Whatever renewable energy technology you want to equate with this car, you just can't use it all the time. And so you keep your first car too, because obviously if you want to drive at night, you want to drive while it's raining, you want to drive while the wind's not blowing, whatever it is, you want to be able to drive whenever you want. Well, that's what we do with electricity, right? Again, electricity has to be consumed, has to be produced at the moment that it's consumed. We get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, flip the light switch on. Well, we want to see where we're going so we don't stub our toes. And so we keep car number 1 also, even when we start adding in a whole bunch of these car number 2s. So again, we're still driving in our system, our transportation system. We're still driving 12,000 miles. And on average, renewable energy produces about a third of its capacity. So assuming that these cars have the same capacity, we'll say that you can get about a third of the miles that you want to drive out of car number 2, but you still need to keep car number 1 around for about the other 2/3 of the miles that you want to drive. So looking at car number 2, as the salesman told you, the fuel and oil changes, yeah, they're free, quote unquote free. You can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. You still have to put tires on it, so renewable generation still requires some variable maintenance. The more that it produces, the more maintenance it requires. It's not as much as fossil fuel generation, 100% give you that. So car number 1, you're not driving it the full 12,000 miles, but it still has fuel, oil changes, tires, and then some other variable maintenance too. And so you've decreased your variable cost in your system from $2,900 to $2,100. So if the story ended there, that'd be awesome. Everybody should go buy a renewable car, or in our example, implement as much renewables into their system, their electric system, as possible. But the story doesn't end there, does it? Obviously not. We've got these other rows down here. What happens with fixed cost? Well, you've got this $30,000 car number 1, that you still own, that you still need to own in order to be able to drive at night or when the wind's not blowing, whatever the case may be. But you also buy this other $30,000 car to take advantage of the lower variable cost. We're going to assume that it also will last 15 years. So you've doubled your depreciation. Let's say you take out another 5-year loan on a 60-month loan on car number 2. Well, you still got your loan on your first car. It doesn't go away. The same way that utilities still have the debt that was on their fossil fuel power plants if they start integrating renewables into their system. You've doubled your interest. Your insurance company might give you a little bit of break if you're driving a little bit less, but since you can't guarantee which of these cars you're going to drive when, you're probably not going to get much of a break. I could probably reduce that a little bit. It's not going to change the answer. License and registration, if you know how to pay less property tax than on a $30,000 car than I do, get in touch, because property tax is eating me alive. But as it is, we're going to assume that you're going to double that also. Your fixed maintenance, hey, I fully concede fossil fuel plants have a lot of moving parts. They require a lot more staff, maintenance staff, than than a renewable source of generation. So we're going to say that we're going to assume that the fixed maintenance on a renewable asset is about 20% of what it would be on a fossil fuel asset. And so, again, car number 2 is our renewable, so we have a lot less maintenance on it. Now, storage. Here's the problem. So here's a problem. The fossil fuel generation is relatively dense in terms of the acres of land that it requires. Renewable generation is the opposite of dense. It's very sparse. It's very dispersed. And so it takes somewhere around 3 times, and in fact, depending on how big the fossil fuel power plant is, it's more than 3 times, but we'll go with the conservative estimate. It takes about 3 times the land to install the equivalent capacity. And we're not discounting that for its worst capacity factor, and that's a utility term. I don't expect you to understand that. We just just know that it takes a lot more land to produce the equivalent amount of electricity, and so and that's kind of where the one spot where this analogy kind of falls apart. It's kind of hard to imagine a car that is 3 times larger than your existing car that requires 3 times the size of a garage. Just imagine, if you will, that it does. And so, but with all these fixed costs the same, with less repairs and maintenance, less storage, I've got an assumption in here that your fixed costs are about the same for car number 2 and car number 1. And so if you look at car number 2, it has lower variable cost, has the same fixed cost as car number 1. And so that's great. You say, well, it's got less cost. Well, it does, but you're also getting less miles out of it. And so car number 2 in this year is costing you $1.30, almost $1.33 per mile. Car number 1, well, you think, well, it's 67 cents per mile. Actually, it's not. You've still got all these fixed costs that you incur with car number 1, as you did when you were driving at the full 12,000 miles. Now you're only driving at 8,000 miles, and so it's costing you about 88 cents per mile. So you do a weighted average, put these 2 columns together, and it costs you about $12,000, $12,372 to drive 12,000 miles. So now it's costing you more than $1 per mile, $1.03, where when you only had the 1 car, 1 set of fixed cost, admittedly quite a bit more variable cost, but only 1 set of fixed cost. Now 2 sets of fixed cost. Now it's costing you $1.03 instead of 67 cents. That's a 54% increase. And so that is, in a nutshell, why integrating renewables into the grid, why it cannot result in lower electricity costs until something happens, something positive happens with utility scale electric storage. It's just impossible for that to happen, simply because you're doubling your fixed cost. As long as we have to consume, as long as we have to produce electricity at the exact moment that it is, I'm getting tangled up. As long as we have to produce it at the exact moment that it's consumed, that you can't store it, and as long as people want to wake up in the middle of the night when the sun is not shining and turn on the light switch and the light come on, or for your refrigerator to run at night, or for your air conditioner to run at night when the sun is not shining, as long as utilities are required to keep basically redundant sources of generation around, because some of the sources of generation cannot be used when the sun is not shining, when it's cloudy, when it's raining, when the wind is not blowing, when the river is not full enough and flowing fast enough, whatever the case may be, as long as all those conditions exist, then that it is impossible for your utility bills to go down. And so, again, I want to say this: I have nothing against renewables, but I really have something against people being misinformed about what they're getting themselves into. And so, hopefully, this helps you understand one of the inevitable results of integrating renewables into the electric grid. So, If you have any questions, I'll be posting this a couple places. Certainly make a comment on it and let me know what questions you have. Hopefully, again, this helps you understand it, and I will talk to you soon, hopefully.